So, good afternoon, good evening, and also good morning, everyone, wherever in the world you are based. We truly a global workplace community, and we have around 30 local hubs and 1,000 formal members all around the world. And I'm Kid Barklund, based in Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm the global lead for our hubs. And I'm so excited about our webinar today. So let's go over to Jeff Saunders.
All right. Thank you so much for the fantastic introduction, Katie. Today we're going to be speaking about the experts assessment, a study that we did over the summer last year, where we initiated a global debate of subject matter experts around the workplace post-COVID-19. And today's discussion will be with a group of fantastic subject matter experts, where we'll present some of the findings from the study. We will extract the data relating to the Asian experience, and then our panelists will help contextualize what does that actually mean, and what are things that are occurring in the world today. Now, the SMEs in Asia, there was 58% of them that expected that at least 20%, 6% of the workforce or the knowledge worker workforce will work remotely most of the time. That is a much smaller degree than our globally based subject matter experts, where it was 81% of them. And we see this in this aspect about why people will return to the office. And the big aspect that's different from the global experience is that, one of the aspects is also a cultural aspect. And we have the factors around the inability to work from home. 55% of the SMEs based in Asia believe that the existing R&E real estate footprints will not change much, but space allocation within offices would change. And this is exactly opposite of what our global SMEs experienced, where they thought that existing footprints in large cities and major metropolitan areas will be significantly reduced, and greater use of co-working, satellite offices, and new types of workspace will become available. Asian-based SMEs, by and large, thought that the facility managers should only be responsible for the in-office experience, 83% of them, compared to 58% of the global SMEs, who felt that the facility managers would be responsible for the entirety of workplace experience. So I would like to start out this debate by asking Trudy, I would like to hear, has any of these findings kind of surprised you, and based on what you're experiencing now?
No surprises there, that the findings are very much in line with our own research that we have done. So we have done research across the globe, and also looking at data that's more focused around just APAC or Asia, and the trends are definitely in line with what you have captured. And the sentiment towards remote working or working from home or distributed working, there's so many different ways to call it. I think we're more and more walking away from calling it working from home, because the trends and the directions that in Asia in particular, contrary to a lot of predictions at the beginning of 2020, is that we're going to really embrace this distributed work more so than we had thought at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay, thanks. Partha, your reflections?
No, they're not surprising, but what I suspect is that the mood, the feelings would have changed a bit over the last 6 to 9 months. And I'll tell you why. Because India is, I think, largely known for all these, large facilities, 1 million square feet, of space, where people are actually sitting, engineers are sitting, and they're supporting some work in the US or in the West. And the whole efficiency was coming from packing a lot of people into one space. That's where the efficiency was coming in. So these organizations kept on saying that we will get back to a normal where people will work from the office. So the focus was on the office, on the building. But now, as they try to get back people to the workplace, and people are resisting, they're saying, well, my friends are not being called back to the office, so maybe you need to allow me to work from home as well. So these organizations, same organizations, are now saying that, hey, look, I think we may actually have to offer work from home and consider remote work as an extended part of the workplace experience. Otherwise, we're going to lose these people. So it's become a retention policy. So that it has changed in that way. And so
Okay.
I would say that the mood is changing towards more of developing a workplace experience now.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd like to put a pin in that because I'd like to come back to that, but I'd like to hear Kat's perspective from Thailand. What have your reflections on the findings?
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for that amazing presentation. I'll have to echo Partha with the one caveat that the impact of the pandemic in terms of gravity, in terms of caseload, has been much lower here in Thailand. And as such, there has been less of an impression. There really has been a focus on the importance of hybrid work, but it's really sitting around 20% of companies that are honoring that. Most are really focused on social engagement as the main key factor to really design for when we're coming into the same space. So similar sentiment to really maximize the ROI of that risk exposure, but it really has had less of an absolute impact here in Thailand.
And so when you're engaging with your clients and customers, I'd like to hear what reports, what information, what data sources are relevant in the Asian context that you use to engage with your clients to actually help them shape their thinking about what's relevant for them in a fit for purpose environment.
Well, Jeffrey, you did share a bit of it in your question, and I'll echo something that Partha shared earlier as well, and that in this smaller market in Thailand, we are still looking at the examples of larger case studies on a global basis. And one of the major research initiatives is actually the new Future of Work Research Initiative, which was a cross-company project consisting of over 50 separate projects led by Microsoft, but inclusive of many companies, LinkedIn, Google, etc. And one of the macro takeaways there was really emphasizing an important shift toward a more humanized and holistically minded decision-making framework, right? So moving away from the command and control parameters and really listening to the individual needs of your people to provide a safe and supportive structure so that they can really share their vulnerable experiences and in accordance with the increasing neurodiversity that is happening in isolation during the pandemic.
Okay, fantastic. Partha, what are you looking for?
Well, Jeff, I think the kind of people who has been managing the workplace, the corporate real estate leaders and facility managers, they are people who are used to working on the basis of certain benchmarks, certain indices. And like, what's the density of a space, how much should I spend? So they're always used to that because you have to justify things on an Excel sheet. Now, suddenly people are finding themselves in a position where they do not have these benchmarks because the workplace has extended beyond the four walls. So what do you really do in the absence of that? Of course, they're looking at, reports. They're looking at your report, they're looking at somebody else's report and trying to make sense of that. But what you're increasingly seeing is that people are trying to do employee surveys to actually find out what people really want within an organization. And I think that's a very healthy thing to do because you're actually trying to co-create a solution with your people. And one of the things we've seen is that increasingly people are trying to understand that what percentage of people will be reporting to office on a regular basis. And once you've determined that, okay, let's say 60% or 70% will come to the office, what kind of work will they be doing on a day-to-day basis? And on the basis of that is what is emerging, what we, all of us know as activity-based working, because realization has come in now that all work does not happen on the desk only, it happens all over. And on the basis of that, you're essentially reassigning your real estate. I think that's what is happening.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have something to add, Trudy, or is that?
Sure. So yeah, I think any workplace strategies out there, like we're in the business of collecting data. And firstly, what we do before we kick off a project with a client, usually we set parameters, exactly what is meaningful data for them to make meaningful decisions. Sometimes they like to look at benchmarking data. Sometimes they go back to their own data. And essentially, we focus the efforts around, obviously, utilization of the spaces previous to the pandemic. And then we also look at occupancy data, and we look at and we also dissect productivity.